Welcome everyone to the Over Under Movies podcast, the show where we take a prominent figure or franchise in the world of filmmaking and ask the simple question: are they overrated or are they underrated? My name is Dylan DeAndres. I'm joined as always by my co-host. He's also a 90s kid, Mr. Jason Gong.
Hello, Dylan. It's good to be here.
Yeah, good to be back. One of our last recorded pods of 2024. 2024, very interesting year to talk about movies. This is our first full year doing this podcast. It's pretty wild.
True.
We're wrapping it up. We haven't missed a week.
It's been...
We came close some weeks.
This week. Hey, you know what? We're recording this on a Friday. It's due on Sunday, and I have work both days.
It's going to be great. Busy weekend right before Christmas here.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the year 2024 is that it is 25 years after the year 1999, which is widely considered one of the greatest film years of all time. Now, I know you can say that about a lot of years, right? You can say, oh, this is such a great year for movies, or, you know, this year a lot of good stuff came out. I'm aware that a lot of good stuff comes out every year, but 99 specifically is insane when you go through the list. It's so insane that we've kind of talked about a lot of these movies throughout the year here, because a decent number of them have been getting like theatrical re-releases, or we've been talking about the sequels of films that didn't pan out or something like that. We thought, might as well just do a whole pod on it. So we're going to do a top 5 films of 1999 list. Jason, do you remember going to any films in 1999?
I saw 2 of the movies. Well, I have an honorable mention on here. So I saw that in theaters, and I saw another one of the movies on my list in theaters. And then the other 4 movies on my list are rated R.
Yeah, so just to give everybody a rundown that's listening at home, I know it's hard to keep track of what movies come out what year sometimes, especially stuff 25 years ago. I'm just going to briefly go over some of the major ones because I don't know about you, my top 5 is not necessarily objectively the best films that came out in 1999.
Not.
It's very much a personal list.
Yeah.
So the top 10 domestic box office for 1999, number 10 was The Blair Witch Project, which we almost did an episode on this year, but we didn't get to it. Number 9 was The Runaway Bride, which is like a rom-com starring Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. Number 8 is a film called The Mummy, which we did an episode on.
Just released.
Like a week ago.
Yep.
Number 7 is Big Daddy, the Adam Sandler film. Number 6 is Tarzan, the animated Disney film. That was like Disney's big film of 1999.
Yeah, kind of a forgotten one.
Yeah, in hindsight.
Many would argue underrated.
Underrated. Great Kingdom Hearts level. It's a lot of people's first Kingdom Hearts level. The
that
first
one's
game.
really good. It's better than the Alice in Wonderland level, which is like the other route you can take.
Yeah. Number 5 is The Matrix, which you may hear about later in this pod. But we did Matrix Resurrections? Is that the fourth one we did?
The 25-year anniversary.
Yeah. So we talked about The Matrix in an early pod this year, so you can definitely go back and check that out. One of my favorite films of all time. Number 4 was Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, which is the second Austin Powers movie. I love the Austin Powers franchise. We'll have to do a pod on like just a whole franchise at some point.
I think so, yeah.
They're incredible films. Number 3 is Toy Story 2, which the Toy Story movies, they all made a ton of money. Toy Story 2 is awesome. It's such like a good follow-up to make it a Woody story, basically, which I think is really, really interesting that he's part of this like iconic toy set.
Yeah.
It's like super valuable.
Yeah, it introduced a bunch of new characters, but they all fit right in. It's a natural extension of the first story, but like, you know, they didn't have that dynamic of Buzz versus Woody to work with. And then, you know what? Maybe it's on one of our lists.
Okay.
Maybe we'll talk
about it later. Number 2 is The Sixth Sense, film that we also talked about this year because we did a whole episode on M. Night Shyamalan. It's insane that Sixth Sense is number 2 here, right? All these other
today.
It's crazy. It's just this like random ass like new filmmaker make a thriller about a little kid that sees ghosts. That was the number 2 domestic gross. Insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. And it got Haley Joel Osment an Oscar nomination out of it as a kid.
After you read the last one, I'm going to do the top 10 of this year just to compare.
Okay. And number 1 is a little film called Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. We did a whole episode on the Star Wars prequels earlier this year. We had a 4-person pod. It was a big one.
Yeah, that was fun.
We had a decent amount of disagreeing on whether or not the Star Wars prequels are overrated or underrated at this point. I think you can argue either way, for sure.
I think so, too.
They've hit the point where you can argue that they are underrated because of the amount of vitriol they got. And then you could say that they're overrated because they're not good movies.
Yeah, for comparison, I mean, There's some pretty interesting movies on that list. A lot of like careers started basically off of that. M. Night Shyamalan and the Wachowskis. And, you know, you could argue like Austin Powers was Mike Myers' big break. And I don't know how many other Adam Sandler films there were before Big Daddy. Anyway, it was like such an early stage for a lot of people's careers. And it launched franchises. And it was just a big year that really kicked off the new century a year early. For comparison, the top grossing movies of 2024, number 10, Kung Fu Panda 4.
Wow.
Number 9,
Sequel.
Kung Fu Panda 4 is a great movie, distributed by Universal, owned by Comcast. And actually, Comcast at the Universal Sphere will be playing a Kung Fu Panda show for the Lunar New Year. So we love seeing Kung Fu Panda winning.
This bias. This bias on the pod.
Number 9, Godzilla X Kong.
Sequel.
The New Empire. Number 8, Twisters. Well, actually, kind of surprising.
A remake of Twister, which we did an episode on this year.
I forgot we did that.
Go back and listen to our Twister pod, because Jason doesn't remember it.
Number 7, Dune Part 2.
The sequel to the first Dune film.
Number 6, Beetlejuice.
A sequel and a pseudo remake of Beetlejuice.
Number 5, Moana 2.
Another sequel.
Moana 2.
Moana's made so much money, man. It's crazy. Those animated films, it's something else.
Number 4, take a guess at what this is. It's an animated film. I think it's the highest grossing animated film franchise of all time. You've given me this fun fact before.
Is it the Despicable Me film that came out of the year?
Despicable Me 4 is number 4 on the list of top grossing movies of 2024. Number 3, Wicked, the only non-sequel on this list.
No, it's a prequel.
It's okay. No, Wicked is just the MCU for theater kids.
Go listen to our Wizard of Oz pod.
Yeah,
where it is debunked that Wicked is a prequel to Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I do love Wicked. It was a lot of fun. Number 2 is Deadpool and Wolverine, and number 1, Inside Out 2.
Inside Out 2 is a mammoth of a film, like at the box office. It's crazy, but yeah. It's just nothing but sequels and remakes and franchises.
All sequels. And like, look, to be fair, 1999, you know, the top grossing was a prequel that was the prequel to like one of the biggest franchises of all time. Stuff has changed, but stuff has stayed the same. But like, you compare these two lists and it's clear like 99 was...
Yeah, at least half the films in the 1999 list are original films.
Yeah.
First films in a franchise. Like The Mummy, the first Mummy film.
Yeah. And you could say that none of these are original films. I mean, Wicked is the only non-sequel.
And this is like a great mix. Like there's comedies in here. There's thrillers.
Ghost drama.
Yeah. There's a horror film, science fiction. It's all over the place.
And these are like real, on the 2024 list, it's real generic blockbuster stuff. Not to like sound old and grouchy and like we're knocking, current movies.
They don't make them like I used to. That's what we're saying.
I think people don't go see them like they used to. You know what? Sometimes you got to put the onus on the audience.
It really is the audience's fault. Absolutely.
Yeah, because there was plenty of Sixth Senses that came out this year and no one went to see them.
Yeah. Longlegs is not in the top 10 for box office.
No, not even close. Longlegs, Heretic,
The First Omen, Smile 2.
Yeah.
There's good horror that came out this year.
Stuff. Nosferatu's coming out. That's not going to make more money than Kung Fu Panda 4. No shot. But yeah, so what are we talking about? Just how good 99 was.
Yeah,
we were children at the time. The Two Towers were still there.
Pre 9/11. This is a different time.
Yeah. Who was our president? One Bill Clinton?
Yeah, it was still Bill Clinton.
Yeah, just
a year before the election.
Real simple times, man.
The 72nd Academy Awards awarded the films from 1999. Best Picture went to American Beauty. The other films that were nominated were The Cider House Rules, The Green Mile, The Insider, and The Sixth Sense.
All right, let's go. I know one of those movies.
Best Director went to Sam Mendes for American Beauty. The other nominees were Lassie Hallstrom for The Cider House Rules, Spike Jonze for Being John Malkovich, Michael Mann for The Insider, and M. Night Shyamalan for The Sixth Sense. So yeah, a decent number of these movies we're not going to be talking about probably in our lists.
Because yeah, again, we were in the single digits when these movies came out. We weren't going to see American Beauty. We tried to watch Eyes Wide Shut the other night, but I had work the next day, and we looked, and it was what, 2 hours 40?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we was like, we watched something else instead, which may be on one of our lists.
Yeah, my favorite award on here is Best Supporting Actor, which was loaded. It went to Michael Caine for The Cider House Rules. Also nominated was Tom Cruise in Magnolia, Michael Clark Duncan in The Green Mile, Jude Law in The Talented Mr. Ripley, and Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense.
Haley Joel Osment got nominated for an Oscar?
Exactly. It's crazy, right?
That's nuts.
They nominated a kid.
Oh man, that poor guy.
But it's an incredible year for movies, and what is interesting is that all these movies that you look at that were nominated for the big Oscars awards, they're not in the box office list. There's like no overlap. Sixth Sense, I guess, is the one main outlier.
Yeah, so true.
That's in both of them, but really like a huge year for blockbusters, huge year for big time Oscar films. The year really had everything.
Yep.
And I got some honorable mention films. Maybe I'll mention them later in the pod. But we can start getting into our top 5 here. So the way we're going to do it, like all of our other top 5 pods, is that we're going to talk about the film with whoever has it higher on their list.
Okay.
So if my number 5 is your number 1, we'll talk about it when we get to your number 1.
Okay.
Sound good? Real quick, we got to place our bets. How many films do we think are overlapping here? The over-under is 2.5.
You know what? I'm going to say, I'll go under. I'll say there's going to be 2 films.
You think there's going to be 2 films that we overlap? I'm also going to take the under. I think my list is a little bit different than yours.
Well, then we can't place a bet.
Nah, we can both place the same bet. It's fine.
Well, who are we betting?
Not everything is in competition. I know that's like
Where does the money come from?
Oh my God. It's hypothetical.
I don't understand.
Gambling on the mind over here.
All right. We're both going under. When we usually do these top 5 things, we always have the same number 1, and it's awesome. But I don't think that's going to happen today.
Yeah, we're doing this, then we're doing our top 5 of the year pod.
Yeah.
And then we also have our top 5 anticipated of 2025.
That list might be similar.
That might be similar, but we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, what's your number 5?
You know, I have an honorable mention on here that we can do after. That originally was number 5, and then I was like, wait a minute. I switched my number 5 and my honorable mention because I watch what I am about to say many, many times, maybe more than anything else on this list. And that's Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
That's your number 5?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not on my list.
I figured. So it's not one of my favorite movies. I understand that it's objectively not the best Star Wars movie, but I feel like I've gotten so much enjoyment out of watching this. This is one of the 2 films on my list that I saw in theaters, and I remember loving it when I was a kid. I still like watching it now. It gave us Duel of the Fates, man, and that really gets you a lot of mileage. I mean, we've talked about this in that Star Wars prequels podcast episode. You should just check that out because I don't really feel like going to bat for this thing again. It's my number 5.
I think it's probably the film from 1999 I've watched the most number of times. I'd have to think about it, but it's a movie that has pretty decent rewatchability for how, not good it is. And we talked about this on our Star Wars pod, but we were literally the perfect age for these movies. We were the exact target audience for what George Lucas was trying to do with those prequel films.
Yeah.
And it worked. I remember when we were kids that all the other kids loved Star Wars. It was getting us into it. And I could imagine that all the guys that were in their 30s and 40s in the late 90s were like, why are they making it so silly for the kids? It's dumb. Star Wars is serious, bro.
Yeah, I don't think I realized that I was supposed to hate Jar Jar Binks, according to the fans.
Yeah, I thought it was
so much.
I thought
later.
he was silly.
Yeah, he's a funny guy, and he was doing his best.
You don't pick up on the racist caricatures.
Right. Yeah, that movie has its problems.
You saw the Trade Federation, you're like, oh, they're cool.
Yeah. I still think it's a fun movie. I watched it with you for the podcast, and I was like, I'm enjoying myself. I watched it just a couple of years ago, and I was like, what a great film.
I'm so excited that next year for our May the 4th pod, we get to do the first 3 Star Wars movies.
That'll be interesting.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So Star Wars: The Phantom Menace is your number 5.
Yep. What do you have?
My number 5, I don't think my number 5 is on your list either. It is Office Space, the Mike Judge film.
I've never seen Office Space.
Office Space is awesome. Office Space is a film that it's kind of timeless at this point because it's a film about hating your life in corporate America. And I feel like that's only gotten worse and worse over the years. So for anybody that hasn't seen Office Space, it's a film about three guys, mainly it focuses on, that work in, it's some sort of non-specific tech job, that they're all working in cubicles, and they hate their boss. Their boss is super annoying, and the one guy, he feels like his life is basically going nowhere. He's like, I do the same thing every single day. He has this great line when he's talking to a therapist where he says, every single day is worse than the day before it. So every time you're talking to me, it's the worst day of my life.
Damn.
And it's just like
That is really
a perfect summation of working in corporate America.
Yeah.
And
brutal.
and the movie's a lot of fun. Jennifer Aniston's really good in it as a waitress who like hates her life working at this like chain restaurant. She works at like an Applebee's basically, where they have to wear certain pieces of like flair on their costume, and her manager's like giving her shit about not wearing enough flair. It's really funny. A lot of great moments in it. The funny thing about the movie is that when they bring in a bunch of guys to do like layoffs, basically, the guy that is the main character at that point, he is checked out of his job. He's doing like quiet quitting. He's like almost like trying to get himself fired. He gets like promoted because they love how like laid back he is and how like open he is about like questioning authority.
That's funny.
So this is Mike Judge, the guy that did King of the Hill, and then
Beavis and Butthead,
and then
Silicon Valley.
And then he eventually does Idiocracy, which is another big film that's like, you know, commentary on America, American life. And
do you like his other stuff too, or you're a King of the Hill fan?
I mean, I'm not a big like TV person in general, but from what I've watched of King of the Hill, I like it, and I like Idiocracy a lot. I know Idiocracy is kind of divisive now. I feel like a little bit.
I haven't seen it,
even though it's a very obviously over the top depiction of people progressively getting stupider and stupider.
Sure.
On like a large scale. But yeah, that's my number 5, Office Space. Wanted to sneak it in there.
Yeah, that's a good one. Good choice.
Yeah. What's your number 4?
This one I think you will have on your list, but I think you'll have it higher. It's The Matrix.
The Matrix is higher on my list, so we're not going to talk about it.
Not yet.
We're not going to talk about it yet. My number 4 is a film called Pokemon, the first movie.
Nice. That's not on my list.
It's not on your list. So this is the first Pokemon film. For any big Pokemon heads, this is the one with Mewtwo and Mew. It's the one that you remember, and this is the only film on my list that I 100% know I saw it in theaters in 1999. Because
I saw it too.
Because everybody wanted that
Mew
ancient
Pokemon
Mew card
card.
that they were giving out.
That thing's sweet. I still have mine. Do you still have yours?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't have any of my old Pokemon cards.
What'd you do with them?
They're lost. They're maybe at my parents' house.
Best case, have them.
Best case scenario, they're at my parents' house. Worst case scenario, they got lost in like a move or something like that.
Yeah, because your family moved at one point too. Yeah.
But I remember this movie very fondly, and this is a movie that it kind of ties between the Kanto and Johto storylines of the Pokemon animated series. So I think it's like Donphan we see in the opening scene of the film. This is the first time you see a Pokemon that's not in the original 151
from the Johto region,
and you're like, "What is that? That's crazy, bro."
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
But the movie's like kind of dark, and Mewtwo is kind of genocidal.
Yeah, and he's also like a victim of like torture and government experiments. It is really cool, and it's got like really cool 90s anime stylization that you don't expect from a Pokemon movie.
Yeah, it's something, and it's kind of something that Pokemon doesn't really do that anymore. They don't do the big wide theatrical releases for their movies.
It's not here in the States.
Yeah, on that scale. So, and they followed this up immediately with the Pokemon 2000.
Yeah, which is not as good.
But I remember this movie very fondly. I haven't seen it in forever. Maybe I'll have to rewatch it sometime to see if it like holds up.
Yeah, I'm surprised that one didn't come up for the pod.
But there's a lot of iconic memes from that movie.
When does the next Pokemon game come out? We can do the Pokemon movie for that.
The next game, I'm not sure what the next.
They're always putting something out.
The last one that they did was Scarlet and Violet, which was not received very well, from my understanding. I haven't played them.
I haven't played them either.
I still have. I have a Pokemon Home account, which has Pokemon of mine dating back to like Black 2 and White 2.
Oh wow!
In like the early 2010s. So like this is Pokemon in the games, not Pokemon cards. So I still have like a bunch of old Pokemon from games that I played like when I was in college. I've been like holding on to them.
Yeah, for some reason I played Red, and then I played Ruby, and then I didn't buy another Pokemon game until Sword. So I'm not really a big Pokemon head like a lot of my.
You never got onto into the emulator stuff or anything?
No, I guess I could have. Like that's pretty easy to do, but no, it's just like after the Game Boy Advance, I didn't get another handheld. So
Because the big thing that I liked about the emulators is that you could like hold down the space bar and it would like speed the game up by like 1,000% or something like that.
yeah.
So you can just like run back and forth in like the grass really fast. And that's like the biggest downside of those like early Pokemon games is it's so fucking slow.
Takes a long time. Yeah, the games themselves I've realized are like not long games. It just you're walking a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, they just feel long because they're grinding. But yeah, Pokemon, fun memories. I'm a huge Pokemon guy.
Yeah.
So that's my number 4. What is your number 3?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense is your number 3. It's not on my list.
Oh, interesting.
What do you like about Sixth Sense?
Sixth Sense is great, dude. When we were doing the M Night podcast, I watched it while I was making meatballs, and like I got so distracted from my meatballs, I was like, "Oh my god, this kid can talk to dead people. That's crazy." The performances were amazing. You know, Bruce Willis had his career defined as like this action star who yells things and shoots guns, and then this movie calls for so much restraint, and he proves he's able to do that. And M Night is the one who directed him to do that. M Night really had only like one other movie that had any kind of theatrical release by that point, I think, and it's like not one that we know what it is. So this is really his first film and his first breakout film, and it's just stellar. It's gripping, it's sad, it's sweet, it's emotional. You root for Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment. Yeah, it totally deserved the nom for the Oscar that it didn't win, but like it was great. You like that movie, right?
Yeah, it's crazy looking back on it in hindsight, especially now that we have the full scope of M. Night's filmography.
Yeah.
You can see that, like, Sixth Sense is an outlier at this point. He doesn't make movies on this level, really.
Not really. I mean,
And at this point, it's almost like he doesn't even care. He's not going for this anymore.
yeah. With like Signs and Unbreakable, he was clearly still trying to like have a similar tone and a similar like level of quality that he wasn't able to hit with those movies, but they're still both considered really good movies. And then after that, like, I mean, once he does Lady in the Water, he's just off the rails.
Yeah, what was his last Airbender? He's like, I might be cooked here.
But he came out of the gate swinging, and I think the world's better for it. Like, Sixth Sense is so iconic. The way, the kid saying, "I see dead people," that gets parodied in, what, the first Scary Movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's iconic.
Yeah, it's so good.
People that have no idea what the Sixth Sense is have heard of I See Dead People.
They've heard of I See Dead People, and there's a good chance they know the twist at the end. I mean, this is what defines the, like, M. Night stereotype of he has a twist at the end.
Yeah, we talk about that in our M. Night pod, that a lot of his movies don't have twists.
He doesn't have twists in all his movies. He just has a really great twist in his first movie.
Yeah, Sixth Sense is awesome, and it holds up, and it's crazy that, yeah, he was in that conversation with Fincher and Nolan and all the, like up and coming directors, like who's going to be the next, the guy.
Yeah,
in the early 2000s. There's that, I think it was like a Time magazine one of, it says M. Night, the next Spielberg.
Yeah,
it's because he did, Sixth Sense was that good.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there were other directors who have had that level of like rise and fall, or not like.
Well, a big part of it, admittedly, is that he picked a great name. His actual name is not M. Night.
Yeah.
And M. Night Shyamalan just rolls off the tongue.
It's a cool name for sure.
For a guy mystique. Yeah, I forget his actual first name. It's a difficult to pronounce Indian name, difficult to pronounce for Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So good job on him. It's not on my list, but...
Yeah, what do you have at your number 3?
My number 3 is a film that we watched earlier this year. I don't remember when we watched it this year, apparently.
Oh, yeah. This should have been on my list.
It's a film called Mystery Men.
I forgot this came out in 99, even though we just talked about it.
Mystery Men.
Oh, Phantom Menace shouldn't be on my list.
I've made a grave mistake.
I just didn't look fully at the list of movies. Son of a gun. Okay.
Only the highest levels of production here at the Over-Under Pod. We'll talk about it right now. It's my number 3, Mystery Men. It's a film ahead of its time.
That movie's awesome.
It is a movie it comes out 10 years before superhero films really become a thing. And this movie is a parody of superhero films. It's a parody of films that aren't mainstream yet. It's crazy.
It's nuts.
It shows Ben Stiller and a collection of other like local, like ground level superheroes trying to just make it in a world that actually does have supervillains. And they have one particular superhero who is basically Batman, and he has like a bunch of sponsorships on his
he looks like a
costume.
NASCAR car, really.
Yeah, it's kind of like this is kind of like The Boys a little bit,
Yeah.
where it's parodying superheroes in that regard of
He's a corporate sponsored superhero.
yeah, they're looking at superheroes as a commodity,
Yeah.
as a marketing product. Some stuff goes down where the lead hero gets captured, and now Ben Stiller and his team, they got to recruit some other heroes,
Oh yeah.
and hijinks ensue.
It's so good. Now, to be fair, like I think a lot of my love for this movie is just like remembering watching it as a kid, and it's so far ahead of its time, and it's so funny, and it's got a lot of humor that's kind of juvenile, a lot of fart jokes. But like to justify why it's not in my top 5, even though it totally should be, when we watched that movie earlier this year, we both fell asleep.
Listen, you're really burying the lead here on why we were sleeping. It was what, like 3 a.m?
Yeah.
It was after some party we went to. We have this thing where we'll get home from parties at 2 a.m, and instead of like a normal person going to sleep, we go, I guess we're watching something, huh? What are we watching?
And that's like, we don't watch movies together that often. If it's not for the pod, we'll watch stuff separate.
Most of the time we watch movies together now is for the pod, which is a little unfortunate.
Yeah.
We don't do as much just watching movies for fun.
I think, and like, it's hurting John. He really wants to watch some movies.
Poor John.
But we're like, sorry, John, we have to go talk about movies for the podcast.
We got to talk about these 99 films.
Although we just had him on for Gladiator, so it's fine.
But listen, if you like The Boys, if you like commentary on superhero stuff, it's crazy that Mystery Men was this prescient and never got a sequel, never really turned into anything. It's not based on a comic, I believe. It's just like an original film.
It has ties to existing comics. It's technically an adaptation of like some very one-off comic book or something. But this thing's really good. And when you look at the caliber of like the actors,
it's a great cast of comedy actors.
William
in
H.
the 90s.
Macy, Hank Azaria, Ben Stiller, like you said, Janine Garofalo, Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman's in it. Kel Mitchell's in it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Kel Mitchell, that's right. Yeah, this thing's nuts. All the superheroes are really memorable. They all have like really stupid powers.
Yeah, it's weird powers. It's not the normal superpowers you see like any other superhero thing.
Hank Azaria plays the Blue Raja. It's before he got called out for his Apu thing, like two decades later.
He's a professional cultural appropriation guy.
Like, he plays a guy whose superpower is throwing forks at things. Janine Garofalo plays someone whose superpower is throwing a bowling ball at things. And then Ben Stiller's superpower is getting really mad. And then when he gets mad, he like punches stuff and jumps on top of a car.
He's just a guy that has anger issues.
A guy with anger issues, and he calls it his superpower. It's so funny.
He's just like me for real.
Kel Mitchell plays Invisiboy. His power is that he can turn invisible, but only when no one's looking. It's so good. And then I think we're still burying the lead here, which is that this is either the first or second movie, I believe it's the first, to feature the song All Star by Smash Mouth.
Oh my God.
Which is one of the most iconic songs of all time. Maybe the defining song of our generation, of like a song that all of our friends can recall the lyrics to from our childhood. I would say that's the one. And this is the movie that the music video for that song is based on this movie. Smash Mouth, I think, got to hang out with the cast and everything.
Yeah, this movie is insanely Smash Mouth coded.
It's so Smash Mouth. It's such a good movie. Yeah, you're right. I'm a fool for not having this on my list.
That's okay. We got to talk about it. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
What is your number 2?
And my number 2, and this is correct, is South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut. Now, this is the film that we chose to watch instead of Eyes Wide Shut the other night.
Very similar movies.
Dylan and I wanted to watch a movie to prepare for this podcast, and we were like, we should watch some 90s movies we haven't seen. So we were like, let's watch Eyes Wide Shut. I think there had been clips going around on Twitter that day. Like, it just seemed like a good thing to watch since we're film bros and we haven't seen it. And then Dylan sent me a message that said, Eyes Wide Shut is 2 hours and 40 minutes. And I gave a deep sigh and thought really long and hard about my life. And then Dylan messaged me a few minutes later and was like, South Park is an hour, 20 minutes.
Nothing says I'm older than 30 years old than going, I am not watching a 2 hour and 40-minute movie on a Tuesday.
Not on a work night. Yeah. So we watched South Park instead. I have seen this movie, I think, 2 or 3 times before this. This movie's dope. It's so funny. It's a musical, and the music is so good. And it's a musical parody. They do parodies of the Beauty and the Beast opening song. That's how they open this. Instead of talking about the boring town in France like Beauty and the Beast, they're celebrating their quiet little mountain town. They do a parody of like One Day More from Les Mis. So like if you're a musical theater buff, you're going to get like references that normies don't even understand. They do a Part of Your World parody. They do all kinds of things. And it's also funny and it's also filthy.
There's insane amounts of swearing in this movie.
Yeah, like possibly
Insane amounts of swearing that like they would not put in a movie in 2024, the things that they're saying to people.
Yeah, it's possibly like a record setter, and it might still hold the record for like most curse words in a movie. This thing is hilarious, but I also think the themes are really good. So basically, the South Park boys want to see a movie. It's rated R. They watch the movie. The movie teaches them to curse frequently, and their parents don't like that, so they get mad at the movie, the Terrence and Phillip movie, and Terrence and Phillip are from Canada. So their parents start a war with Canada, and then Satan's also involved. Satan and Saddam Hussein are there. And it's about censorship. It's about parents' responsibility to teach kids themselves, like about life and swearing. You know, these are parents who raised their children or just had their children raised on television and didn't raise them themselves. And then instead of taking responsibility or even just talking to their kids, they started a war instead. These are themes that I think are still relevant today. We hear a lot about how Generation Alpha has attention span issues, behavioral issues, and people are like, look at TikTok, look at Instagram, social media, blah, blah, blah. And all of that is correct. But, you know, you got to talk to your kids. I don't know. We shouldn't lecture our
This movie
our
also
peers.
has the devil.
Yeah,
and
Satan and Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein in a gay relationship in hell.
That's right. That's right. And this was well before Saddam Hussein had actually died.
Yeah,
IRL.
it's weird that why is he in hell? He just hangs out down there.
No, they say it in the beginning of the movie. You said the line out loud and laughed at it. It said Saddam Hussein. They're watching the news, and it says, in other news, Saddam Hussein has been killed by a pack of wild boars. And then you laughed and said, ha ha ha.
Oh, the feral
Saddam
hogs.
Hussein was killed by a pack of wild boars.
They found him in his hole in the ground, apparently.
Yeah.
Again, this is pre 9/11.
Yeah. This was, I don't even know that guy was on our radar as a bad guy at the time, but South Park knew. Again, free shit.
Is there? It's such a crazy twist that the South Park guys are giant theater nerds.
Yeah, it's great because I feel like, I mean, the South Park guys, they identify as like conservatives. They're kind of libertarian, whatever. But I think a lot of the content that they make is like fairly progressive. I think that they put thought into the views that they espouse. I'm a big fan of South Park. I think they're very funny and good at creating satire about.
Yeah, and every single time they try to make something big, they go to a musical.
Mm-hmm.
Like Team America World Police has a lot of music in it.
2 or 3 musical numbers.
And then they made Book of Mormon.
Yep. I have a new musical coming out with Kendrick Lamar, I think.
So yeah, I think it's a pretty funny movie. I'm somebody that I didn't watch South Park a lot when I was younger. When I was in college, I binged a good bit of it. I know you've recently, South Park is in your rotation of shows that you're watching in Spanish.
See,
which is, it's always funny seeing how much effort they put into matching the Spanish voice actors to Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who do a lot of the voices in South Park.
Yeah, so Cartman and Kyle and Kenny, they all sound almost the same in Spanish, or they're doing like a good impression. And then, like you said, Stan just sounds like a guy.
He's just a Mexican man.
A grown man, yeah.
They ran out of budget.
Yeah. When we watched the movie, I tried to put Spanish subtitles on, but Paramount Plus did not support that on our Roku. So,
R.I.P.
yeah. That's my, what did I say that was? Number 2?
That's your number 2.
Yeah, I love South Park. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is a film that we did on the pod earlier this year. It's called Galaxy Quest.
Nice. That's a good one.
Galaxy Quest is another parody, this time of Star Trek and, conventions and nerd culture. It's a parody of a whole bunch of things. And it's a movie that it's incredible that it works as well as it does. It's a movie that holds up even better now because of, where we are currently with Star Wars and Star Trek and Marvel, just how much fandom is a thing and how many actors are like now in the same situation as the cast in this movie. So everybody that hasn't seen Galaxy Quest, first of all, go back and listen to our Galaxy Quest pod. It's great. We had a lot of fun with it.
That was a good one, yeah. We should rank our own episodes.
Galaxy Quest is about essentially a group of actors that were in Star Trek, but it's called Galaxy Quest in the movie. And they're all washed up and they're hitting the convention circuit. And for the most part, they hate it.
Yeah.
And Tim Allen, who is in the William Shatner role, essentially, he gets approached by a group of real life aliens who think that the show is real and that they're actually these amazing, intergalactic, arbiters of taking out evil people. And so they recruit Tim Allen. Tim Allen's in on it. He goes and grabs the rest of his crew, brings them to space. And the best part of the movie is that they're wholly incompetent because they're actors. And a lot of them are just terrified the entire movie that they're going to die.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And it's just endless comedy.
Yeah, and it's a really stellar cast. I mean, Tony Shalhoub, Sam
Rockwell, Alan Rickman, Sigourney Weaver, Tim Allen.
That is so stacked. There's not a single no name on there out of the main cast.
It's crazy.
People is a star.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell is 6th billing.
Yeah,
Sam Rockwell might be the best actor out of all of them.
Yeah, Justin Long's in it.
Yeah, Justin Long plays the nerdy kid that has to help them from back on Earth.
Yeah,
which the climax of the film is they're trying to make their way through the ship, through the bowels of the ship, and only somebody who has deep, intricate, nerdy knowledge of how the ship is constructed would know how to get them through all the air ducts and everything. So they enlist Justin Long and his buddies.
Right. So that's there's a level of wish fulfillment in this movie.
Yeah, it's the ultimate nerd dream,
right? I could be a hero because I know everything about Star Trek. I've seen every episode so many times. Yeah. It's great because even though it's parodying those things, making fun of those things, there's still a lot of reverence that it holds for.
Yeah, they're not laughing at
for the
people.
Nerds. Yeah, they're laughing at them a little, but in a way that I think people can be appreciative.
Yeah, I love the scene where Justin Long realizes he's got the transponder that Tim Allen's talking to him. And he's like, yeah, listen, man, I know it's fake. I know, it's nerdy. So Tim Allen's like, no, it's real. I need your help. He's like, I knew it. Ooh, it's real.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And another one of these parody films that they came out in 1999. They can make this movie today and it would hold up.
Yeah, I agree.
Really, really great film. What my number 1 is, but we'll talk about your number 1 first.
My number 1's also a movie that we've talked about on this podcast. It's Fight Club.
Fight Club. Fight Club did not make my list. I thought about putting Fight Club on there.
Fight Club is so good. Look, I'm not like other guys, but I do have Fight Club and South Park as my 1 and 2. So in some ways, I am just a dumb man with the movie podcast.
Listen, man, at a certain point, you just got to embrace it.
So, yeah, Fight Club's really good.
I fucking love Fight Club.
It's so good. First of all, those dudes are cut. They're so strong. And then they punch each other.
Brad Pitt is so fucking chiseled in that movie.
Have you heard that story? Maybe we talked about this on the Fight Club episode.
Oh, yeah, we did a Fight Club pod.
Yeah.
You can go back and listen to it.
But there's that story where Mac from It's Always Sunny goes to a personal trainer and he wants to get cut.
Yeah, he said, I want to look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
His personal trainer said, let me guess, you want to look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. And he was like, how did you know? And he said, everyone who comes to me says they want to look like Brad Pitt from Fight Club. So that guy is the gold standard of unattainable body goals for men. And it's awesome. He's so strong.
Bro, you're going to be so malnourished by the end of this.
It's like crazy. It's another movie. I've got 2 movies on here where it's like famous because there's a big twist, and a lot of people at this point know the twist. Fight Club has a twist. It's a really good one. Brad Pitt and Edward Norton are fantastic actors. Helena Bonham Carter is a great actress. It's funny. It's like violent in a really engaging way, but in a way that's different than your typical blockbuster. I think the author said he likes the ending of the movie more than he likes the ending of his own book. It's just cool upon cool on levels that I still like really enjoy. Fight Club is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah, and it's a movie that is more popular now than it was in 1999.
Yeah, it's truly underrated during that year.
Because it is not on any of those Oscar lists.
No Oscar noms, definitely not on that top 10 box office list.
And you're sitting there going, well, it's Fincher, but like,
But like, who's Fincher?
yeah, who's Fincher in 1999?
Yeah.
It's the guy that did Alien 3.
Yeah. So this movie is super cool.
You know what did get nominated for an Oscar? We have to mention this. Is the South Park movie got nominated for Best Song?
Oh, how did we miss that? Yeah, it was nominated for Blame Canada. They did get to they got to perform it at the Oscars. Matt and Trey did not perform it. I believe this Oscars was the event that they attended in drag. They attended in drag while on LSD. And then people got mad at them. All the other
Those guys knew they weren't ever getting another Oscar nomination. So that could fucking count.
These guys, but they got someone else to sing the song, and they got Robin Williams to do the performance of Blame Canada. And you should check out that video because he is going all out for it. It's so much fun. It's very joyous. It's great, and it's a good song. And they lost to, I believe, Phil Collins for the Tarzan soundtrack.
Yeah.
You'll Be in My Heart or something. And they said, I think they like put Phil Collins in one of their South Park episodes, made fun of him. He hates them. And they said on the record something along the lines of like, oh yeah, I guess we hate Phil Collins. And they were like, we're not sad that we lost the Oscar. We're just really mad that we lost to Phil Collins. So a little bit of beef there between Oscar contenders.
Out of all the songs that got nominated, I think When She Loved Me from Toy Story 2, that might be my favorite one that got nominated.
Yeah.
That's the Jesse song.
It's a good one. It's a tearjerker.
And it fucking rips your heart out when you watch it every single time.
I think I would have just picked a different song from South Park. I think What Would Brian Boitano Do would be my pick for the Oscar nom. Anyway, back to Fight Club. Good movie.
Yeah, I don't have much to add about Fight Club. We talked about it a lot in our Fight Club episode last year.
Yeah.
But it's a movie that is very good, and it is unfortunately been co-opted by like manosphere weirdos.
Yes. Yeah.
And people being like, this is what a true man is.
Yeah.
Is Tyler Durden, which is like literally the opposite of what the film is trying to tell you.
Exactly.
It's trying to tell you, this guy sucks. Don't be like this guy.
Yeah. But it's hard when every male actor
He's so hot.
Wants to look like him. Well, anyway, speaking of movies that have been co-opted by manosphere right-wing people, Dylan, what do you have at number 1?
Before we get to my number 1, I just want to talk about honorable mention. Actually, what was your honorable mention?
It was Toy Story 2.
It was Toy Story 2. Okay, yeah, Toy Story 2 is great.
Yeah,
go watch all the Toy Story films are solid. The last one is okay.
Number 4.
Yeah, the 4th one.
Yeah, I forgot about
I just put like a random collection of films that I saw when I was looking at the 1999 list. Just to reiterate how big of a movie year this is, like, why are we even doing a pod on this? Crazy list of just like truly random collection of films. Varsity Blues, She's All That, October Sky.
Oh, yeah.
Analyze This, Cruel Intentions, 10 Things I Hate About You, Never Been Kissed, Election, Notting Hill, Run Lola Run, Wild Wild West, the movie that Will Smith did instead of doing Matrix, American Pie, which might be in my top 10 if we were doing a top 10 list here. I kind of like American Pie. Muppets from Space, Eyes Wide Shut, Lake Placid, The Haunting, Deep Blue Sea, The Iron Giant, which didn't make on either of our lists, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost.
That was a straight-to-DVD movie.
Superstar, Being John Malkovich, House on Haunting Hill, The Bone Collector, Dogma, which did not make either of our top 5s.
You know what? Dogma...
We watched Dogma earlier this year.
That would be an honor.
And thought about doing a pod on it, yeah.
You know what? That might even be better than Mystery Men. That's a tough call.
Yeah, Dogma is good. Sleepy Hollow was the Tim Burton film that came out this year.
Oh, yeah.
Cider House Rules, Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo. The Green Mile, Fantasia 2000,
Oh yeah.
Bicentennial Man, Magnolia, another M. Night Shyamalan film, Stuart Little, because he wrote the screenplay for Stuart Little.
That's right.
Girl Interrupted, Any Given Sunday, Man on the Moon, and Talented Mr. Ripley. All 1999 movies. Crazy,
some good
crazy year
movies.
for film.
There's a lot of like classics on there that I still haven't seen. I've never seen Man on the Moon.
Yeah, it's a lot of films that just like, they kind of hold up. There's films that people still talk about today.
Yeah, something was in the water there. Yeah.
Yeah. My number one, it was earlier on your list, is The Matrix. The Matrix is in my Letterboxd top 4. Shout out to Letterboxd. It's awesome. It's like almost a perfect movie. And it unfortunately spawned a franchise that did not live up to the hype that the first film created. But it's a movie that like I'll watch it right now. I think it's so good. And the concept of living in a simulation obviously has been co-opted by weirdos on the internet, thinking that we are actually living in a simulation, that there are real robots out there harvesting humans for energy
Right.
to power their simulation.
Right.
But really, it's just a cool fucking action movie, man.
It's really cool. It's very innovative. You know, I think it really defined the action movies for like the next 10 years.
Insanely influential film. There's so many other films that are trying to match the look, they're trying to match the action, and to varying degrees of success. That's including the Matrix sequels.
Yeah, I mean, this thing spawned so many like memes at this point, but like so many just iconic movie moments. Even things like the deja vu with the cat or Lady in the Red Dress, like that's so memorable. The blue pill, red pill, obviously that's a whole thing, but like just seeing that iconography at the time, you're like, I'm gonna remember this forever. And it was just from two random directors that didn't have anything else, I think, at the time. Keanu Reeves was not an action star yet. He had done, what, like Bill and Ted's at that point, and maybe Point Break?
Yeah, had he done Speed yet?
Okay, maybe he was an action star. All right, I'll walk that back. I'm okay with that.
You're editing this pod, so you can keep that in if you want.
Yeah, I don't care. He's about to be in Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. No, it is cool because, like I said, that movie, I think, defined like about a decade of action films after it. Like you look at Underworld, Resident Evil, those movies are all like trying to have like Matrix type of success. Matrix type
It's
of
interesting because it
aesthetics.
also, it has this very 90s like nu metal aesthetic to it. And that just bleeds over into the 2000s because of how big this movie was.
Yeah, and it's cool. And then like a few years later when John Wick comes around, then every action movie wants to be John Wick. It's just kind of cool that Keanu Reeves got to be this action star that
Yeah,
he
and
is today.
it's Chad Stahelski both times too.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
true.
Keanu's stunt double in The Matrix, and then he comes back and he directs the John Wick films.
Do you think Chad Stahelski had any hand in Sonic 3? Because if he did, then every action movie after today
He's the GOAT. He's
is
the
going
Keanu
to try
GOAT.
and be Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Yeah, The Matrix is cool. It's got, you know, for as good of an action movie it really is rooted in philosophy. And granted, it's not like spectacularly complex philosophy, but it's really interesting ideas for just an action film.
Yeah, and it's a movie about identity. Obviously, it's a film that is directed by now to transgender women who clearly are using the film as a way to like explore their own identity in the 90s.
Yeah.
And like, what's it like feeling like you're two different people in two different worlds? And, you know, do you take the red pill or do you take the blue pill? It's very similar, like Office Space. Like, do you want to conform into like what society wants you to be, or do you want to try to like break from the simulation and try to carve your own path?
Yeah. It's also similar to like Fight Club in that sense. I guess there was like a real feeling of like,
Yeah, fighting back against the system.
yeah, in '99 that I think we still feel today.
And this is
5 years later.
You know, and this is a movie that is coming right before the big like Y2K panic of the turn of the millennium. So everybody's afraid of computers, the
Yeah.
power of technology.
Yeah.
And this is a film that it perfectly grasps all of it. And not only that, but it's got like legitimately amazing action sequences. The fight choreography is really good. It's clearly inspired by like wire fu Asian films.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And for a film that wasn't a super high budget, In fact, the Wachowskis did something very risky where they used the entire budget that they were given to just shoot the opening sequence, and then they went back and asked for more money after showing them that opening sequence of Trinity getting chased out of the building and into the phone booth. It's awesome. I have like no major criticisms whatsoever of the first Matrix film. I think it's like basically a perfect movie, and it is the perfect movie to describe 1999.
I would agree. I think one like running theme that we've talked about throughout this is like, oh, this movie's good because it's prescient. We love this because it still feels so relevant today. That's something that we've kept saying throughout this episode. 25 years later, The Matrix is really the one out of both of our lists that is like, wow, this is so relevant today.
It's a movie that's relevant now. It holds up still. You can go watch it right now, and it still feels better than action films that come out today. I mean, you put it next to John Wick, and you're like, Matrix is better. It's just like all around feels like a better movie.
Yeah.
It's not overly reliant on the action. The action is a part of the film.
Mm-hmm.
That is otherwise like really interesting and philosophical and all that.
Yeah, and the action elevates the philosophy, and the philosophy elevates the action, and it's just really good. It's like cyclical type of thing.
And
it's beautiful.
And yeah, it's a movie that just inspired tons of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's parodies of the sequences in this or just outright trying to copy The Matrix.
Yeah, I think it's really good because you can go into it and you'll either be like, this is the greatest movie ever, or that was super fun. Even if you walk away from it thinking it's a dumb action movie, you're still going to be like, I had a great time watching that. So,
or you're going to come out of it and go, bro, I think we're like actually living in a Matrix. I think it's real.
So true. So, Dylan, any other final thoughts about the year 1999?
A great year.
Who won the World Series?
If only I could be 7 years old again. I have no idea. Who was winning any sports stuff back in '99? Oh, to be a kid again.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun. I remember those years well, and that year, I think, a lot of my being a movie nerd today comes from having seen films that year. I saw Mystery Men when I was pretty young. I don't think I saw it in theaters, but I saw it pretty soon after. I wish I had seen South Park when I was in elementary school. I would have been a very different person.
You would have been literally the plot of the film.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is Jason cursing nonstop?
Yeah, honestly, great year for movies. I guess we're feeling a little nostalgic about the whole time and what that year gave to us. But hey, maybe 2025 is going to have some good movies too.
So how many films did we end up having overlap? Is it just Matrix?
Yeah.
Wow. So under hits.
I think because that was such a good year for movies, there was like multiple movies on your list where I was like, that movie came out?
You're like, shit.
Yeah. Although I do think Dogma would have bumped out Phantom Menace for me.
I thought about putting Phantom Menace in my top 5 just because like it's probably the movie I've seen the most outside of Matrix. I've seen Matrix a lot. Yeah. Awesome year for movies. Shout out to 1999. Check out any of the movies we talked about today if they sound interesting to you. What else we got coming up here? We got Nosferatu spoilers. Yeah, Nosferatu comes out. Then we got our top 5 of the year, and then our top 5 anticipated. So look out for that. That's gonna do it for this episode of the Over Under Movies podcast. Jason, thanks for stopping by. Of course. Another late night Friday pod.
Yeah, I got work
for us. Work in the morning. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on Patreon. Get our episodes a day early. Shoot us a couple bucks. Get your name and end credits of every pod. And we will also love you forever.
Yeah, that's true.
That's very important. You also get invited to all of our parties that we throw at our house. We'll add that to the Patreon as well. We just did a speakeasy party last weekend.
And our top donor was there.
That's true. He's got the perks.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again for listening, guys, and we will see you at the movies. Bye.
Bye.
We out.